Have you ever been left unread by somebody you really cared about? Similarly, have you ever been praying for something that you really cared about and you feel like you haven't gotten an answer, almost as if you've been left unread by God? We often think that Joseph Smith just went to some churches, read James 1:5, and then prayed and got his answer. But look at what it says in his 1832 account. It said he had been studying this out since he was 12 years old. That's 2 years. Let's hop into Joseph Smith history and see how his experience might relate to yours and mine. I'm Art. This is So What? Last week, we talked about how the Spirit speaks to us in our language. This week, I want to talk about how we can get it to start talking to us. Joseph Smith History, chapter 1, verses 1 through 26 is the perfect recipe on how to receive revelation. And I want you to remember the acronym SWP. S stands for study, which is exactly what Joseph Smith did. Let's go look at what it says in verse 11 through 12. Verse 11 says, "While I was laboring under the extreme difficulties caused by the contest of these parties of religionists, I was one day reading the epistle of James," meaning he was studying the Bible. Now let's jump to verse 12 and see how this affected him. He said, "I reflected on it again and again, knowing that if any person needed wisdom from God, I did." This is what the Lord meant when he said in D&C 9:8, "But behold, I say unto you that you must study it out in your mind. Then you must ask me if it be right." W stands for work. Last week, we talked about how the Lord does require a little bit of effort on our part in order for us to receive revelation. Look at what it says in verse 8. Now, he wasn't just sitting around saying, I wonder what church is true. He actually was going to them. He said, "I attended their several meetings as often as occasion would permit." He was going to different churches and meeting with them. He even went as far as to choose one. He said he was somewhat partial to the Methodist sect, and he felt some desire to be united with them. Listen to what Elder Uchtdor said in the October 2009 General Conference about the connection between work and prayer.
When our wagon gets stuck in the mud, God is much more likely to assist the man who gets out to push than the man who merely raises his voice in prayer, no matter how eloquent the oration.
Now, P stands for pray. And I'm not talking about kneeling down, asking, and then getting up and going and playing video games. I'm talking about praying with intent, praying with an action in mind. Verse 18 shows us what the whole point of Joseph's prayer was. "My object in going to inquire of the Lord was to know which of all the sects was right, that I might know which to join." Join is an action word. Listen to what Elder Bednar said about Joseph's prayer.
Joseph's questions focused not just on what he needed to know, but also on what was to be done. His prayer was not simply, which church is right? His question was, which church should I join? Joseph went to the grove to ask in faith, and he was determined to act.
Now for my favorite question. So what? Just as frustrating as it can be and hurtful as it can be being left unread by somebody you love, it can be even more frustrating and hurtful to feel like your prayers are not being answered. Especially when the things that you're praying for are things that are really important to you, things that you really care about. Things like, what should I do with my life? What classes should I take this semester? Is the church true? Why do I feel like I don't fit in at school or at church? How come nobody's nice to me? How come everybody else's family seems like they're doing a lot better? If you've been praying for something that you really care about for days, for weeks, for months, or even like Joseph for years, Elder Richard G. Scott has some awesome counsel for you.
I have discovered that what sometimes seems an impenetrable barrier is a giant step we're expected to take in trust. If you seek his help, be sure your life is clean, your motives are worthy, and you're willing to do what he asks. For he will answer your prayer. He is your loving Father. You are his beloved child. He loves you perfectly and wants to help you.
He trusts you. He will answer your prayer. He is your loving Father. You are His child, and He wants to help. Tiny heart. See you next time.